And at the end of the event, a little girl comes up to me and she's like, hey, can you take my picture on your nice camera? I will never be able to go to America, but at least my photo will.
America is probably the only country in the world where poor people are fat. Yes, poor people are fat in America.
Y'all know what's really crazy living in America is the fact that you could work 2-3 jobs, work 60 hours a week, and barely afford to live, barely afford to go to school, barely afford groceries, and it's just like, there's nothing you can do. Like, there's nothing you can do. It just is what it is. Like, there's not enough money. People don't get paid enough just to even survive. But that's reality, I guess.
I promise this is not to be offensive, but have y'all noticed that we have normalized poverty? There was a guy on TikTok talking about how he doesn't like the fact that he's 50 years old and he has to have a roommate because things are so expensive. And the tone deaf comments of people saying things such as, oh, well, you have to live below your means, or, oh, you need to just go ahead and get an RV. Not realizing that the RVs and the tiny homes, the trailers, which were the solutions to the problems, are now also unaffordable. Just a few years ago, tiny homes started to become popular and they were priced at about $30,000-$40,000. Currently, tiny homes start at double that amount right now. All I'm trying to say is there's a bigger problem at hand, and telling people that they need to just completely deprive themselves of basic necessities such as a home. Y'all don't think that's weird? I don't know.
I know people say this all the time, but it really is very expensive to be poor. So I had to close my Bank of America savings account the other day because they started charging me monthly maintenance fees. And I'm just like, I'm tagging Bank of America because I want the smoke. What are you maintaining? What are you maintaining? Answer quickly. Because I just feel like clearly I'm on hard times. Like, I had to move the money from my savings to my check-ins. Clearly I'm on hard times, and you said, I'm gonna make them harder. Like, that is so evil. That is so evil. Like, when I called because they don't even make closing the account process easy. Well, I had to call, I don't like to talk to people. But I called and she was like, is there a reason why you're closing? I was like, I think the monthly maintenance fees are ridiculous. Like, the first time they charged that $8, I had no money in the account and they overdrafted my account and put it in the negatives. Now I had to go put money in the account, the little money that I had, so that they didn't start charging me no overdraft. Y'all are so unserious, and that's why I had to close that account, because that is the craziest thing I ever did see.
It is very expensive to be poor in America. When you are poor, you usually have a bad credit, which means that you will be charged higher interest rate on loans and credit cards. It also means that your car insurance premiums will be higher because insurance companies run your credit before issuing you a policy. When you are poor, you are more likely to use payday loans and pawn shop that charge you outrageous fees. Those fees alone will suck your money away coming from your paycheck. That is because the fees that you pay will be a lot more than the money that you borrow. I could go on and on with this, but yes, you get the idea. Being poor would cost you a lot of money, and it's very expensive to be poor in America.
When I had my first baby, I had no PTO saved up because I was a brand new teacher and they don't give it to you all at once. So I had to go back to work at 5 weeks postpartum. Nobody tells you after high school or in high school that nobody pays your maternity leave for you. You pay your own maternity leave. Later that year, while my son was still nursing, I came down with pneumonia. I had no PTO to take off and rest and get better. So it was a drawn-out pneumonia experience for me. My husband at the time was still a student, so it was just my income we were working off of. I made too much money, about $30,000 a year as a teacher in Arizona. I made too much money to qualify for SNAP or any other benefits through the government. Childcare costed about $800 a month, and that was coincidentally the same amount of money it would have costed to add him to my health insurance plan as a teacher.
Being poor is really expensive. For example, I need a new used car, but I can only afford a car that's about the $2,000 to $3,000 range. I can't really afford anything from a dealership or to get an auto loan. After scrimping and saving and looking at cars for months and months, cars that had all sorts of crap wrong with them, I found one that seemed like okay and seemed like trustworthy people to buy from. I went over to them, checked out the car, gave them my hard-earned money, and then on the way home I had a blowout. And then after I had a tow truck, a very expensive tow truck, because I can't afford to have AAA, tow me to a repair shop, I get told that 3 out of the 4 tires need to be replaced. And also the wheel well that's holding one of the tires on is messed up and that needs to be fixed. So now this cheap car has cost me an extra $400. And then driving it home from the repair shop, the blinkers go out. Plus a myriad of other problems with this car that I don't know about yet. Money that I don't really have that I've been saving for months in order to have a car that I thought would be reliable and take me around town. Because I never will be able to afford a new car. And that's just one of many examples on how poor people having to buy lower quality stuff means that they spend more money over time maintaining that stuff or buying more of that stuff than someone who could just buy the nicer thing.
Wow, she paid for her own maternity leave? I never heard that before. And you know, this is the irony of being poor in America. If you're not poor enough, or if you are middle class, you will not qualify for public assistance. You cannot get any kind of government help such as food assistance or food stamps, housing help or Section 8 voucher, help with utility bills, or free healthcare. I mean, you are poor already, but it's almost as if you are being penalized for not being poor enough. You can't make this up, man. You can't make it up.
One thing I've learned about being an American citizen is that it's better to be poor than be middle class. Because being middle class is the hardest fuck. You literally can't get no help from the government if you are middle class. And you barely can survive out here being middle class. It's like if you're middle class, you don't qualify for certain things. Like you can't qualify for an apartment because you got to make 3 to 4 times the rent. And of course, you're not making that being middle class. And I'm literally like right over the threshold of being poor. And it's dumb as hell because if you're making over $2,500 in a month, you can't even qualify for any governmental assistance. That makes no goddamn sense to me. Because $2,500 in a month is literally nothing when you have all other types of bills. America's really like backwards.
And also, you know what? Kids cost money. A lot of it. They are lovable liabilities. And that's why some people believe that poor people should not have any kids. Do you agree with that? Let's find out.
But I believe that if you are really poor, you should not be having kids.
So many people feel so entitled to having kids, and I'm just over it. I feel like if you are poor and you want a kid just because they're cute, that is selfish. And y'all love to cry eugenics, classism, racism even. But it's like, when are we gonna be for real? The poverty mindset, it needs to be addressed. Because some of y'all, you're just not in the right place to have kids. You're just not. If you can barely provide for yourself, how are you gonna provide for a kid? And I truly don't say that to be mean. I say that as someone who grew up on food stamps, sometimes had to come home with the lights turned out, and literally had to pay 100% of my formal education. What people don't realize about when you grow up poor is that literally your basic needs are not even met. You have to grow up way faster than you ever should have to. Your whole view of the world is just skewed. Like, you think $20 is a lot, and you think that you have to work like these 40, 60-hour work weeks. It's crazy. You struggle, you normalize that struggle, and you pass that down, right? And then the cycle just continues, rinse, repeat.
America has the richest poor people in the entire world. What do I mean by that? When you are poor in America, you are actually a lot better off than most people are all over the world. America is probably the only country in the world where poor people are fat. Yes, poor people are fat in America. In poor country, when you are poor, you are skinny. Simply because in poor countries, poor people cannot afford food and therefore they are skinny. On the other hand, fat people are either rich or simply well off. Being fat is seen as being attractive because it shows that you can eat more food than you need. For one, in poor country, it's hard to find food because it shows that you can eat more food than you need.
Ironically, America has the richest poor people in the world. This is so true. Our poverty line is significantly higher than a majority of the world's, yet some people do not realize it here. So let me paint a picture. My parents are both immigrants from India, and whatever wealth they have built in this country, they have built with their bare hands. Growing up, we weren't living paycheck to paycheck, but we were not well off, and my parents would always emphasize things like pencils, backpack, new shoes, And they'd be like, oh my God, look how lucky you are to have these things. You should be so grateful. And of course I was, but in the back of my head, I'm like, this is nowhere near the nicest things that people have at my school. I went to school with a bunch of 1%ers that always had Lululemon and the nicest sneakers. So imagine my little ass when I had to go home and hear lectures about how grateful I am to have pencils. All this changed pretty fast once I took my first trip to India. It was day one, my cousin had to go by suite, so he's like, why don't you come with me, I'll take you on a motorcycle for the first time. And technically, my brain was in vacation mode, so I put on my nicest dress to go outside. For the first time in my life, I saw hordes of naked children on the street. And I was utterly shocked, because these kids were not babies. They were easily 6-7 years old. I realized that their parents could not afford clothes for them. This was just day one. Let's say like day 10, my dad's sister, worked at a public school, so they were having a special event that day, and she's like, why don't I take you? My dad had given me a janky old ass camera, because this was still back in the day when you had a separate camera and a phone, and my dad had recently invested in a new camera, so he's like, why don't you have my old ugly one from the 2000s? And I was happy with it. I was perfectly content, but I decided to take this camera to the school to take pictures. And I was excited because there was an event at school. And, you know, over here, Christmas party or pizza party always meant pizza, candy, loads of drinks, food. Not over there. Not over there. The event was that the kids were putting on some plays, and the snack that they got was one singular piece of candy, like one little guava candy. And the teachers were fighting off adults, like literally fighting off adults, being like, you cannot have one, these are only for the children. And at the end of the event, a little girl comes up to me and she's like, hey, can you take my picture on your nice camera? I will never be able to go to America, but at least my photo will. I cried my off that day. I cried myself to sleep. Going back to school, it made perfect sense why my parents cared about pencils and erasers and backpacks. Not that I ever was an ungrateful brat, but I will never complain about the shit that I have.